Hey everyone, Golden Ninja 3000 here again. Today I'm reviewing the combination model for LEGO Art set number 31199 Marvel Studios Iron Man. Basically, one of these sets costs $120, and if you put all three of them together, you can rebuild them into this giant triple-size mosaic. I've already reviewed the original set separately, so you guys can check that out. This video is only covering the combination model and what it was like to build it. So as you can see, this thing barely fits on my filming table. It's basically the same width as Diagon Alley, which was about 1 meter wide. This isn't exactly the size of 3 mosaics put together because you do have like that brick edge of one frame removed, like that one edge on each mosaic. However, it's still gigantic. There are some problems I have with the build process, but first I want to show you guys the front and the back. So as you guys can see, the image that this mosaic depicts is that iconic pose of Tony's with his arms stretched forward and his repulsor firing. This is the Mark III suit from the very first Iron Man movie. And I really, really love this picture. That's why I wanted to build the combination model, because you get so much more detail. You get the full arm, you get like the entire repulsor, you have the gold in like the bicep, but then you even get like parts of his torso in the corner over there. And you can even see like the arc reactor. I really like that. I think that that detail is achieved very well, especially from a distance. And I also really like how his face is turned, because every other Iron Man mosaic image is like head on, just like directly in front of like the helmet. Whereas this one's at like a bit of a 3/4 turn. So I think that it just makes the picture look, like more dynamic, more alive, and a little bit more interesting. However, there are parts that I don't like about this too. As you can see, there's just a massive patch of like background there. It takes up almost like a complete mosaic's worth of base plates, like just the dark blue and black studded background. And yes, the image looks incredible when finished, but it is such a pain to build. And honestly, it just feels kind of like bad that you spend so much of your time working on what amounts to nothing in like the completed model. Zooming in on some finer details, I really love the way that they created the repulsor blast. Surprisingly, there's very little white and blue in there. It's actually mostly grays, that ring of sand blue, and then dark tan and light nougat studs. That's a really interesting way to build it, and you can even see that you have that printed Marvel Iron Man 2x4 tile in the bottom left corner. That's a switch from its position in the bottom right corner on the other mosaics, but I understand why they moved its position because you have the arc reactor in the bottom right corner of this set. I also just love the way that they did the highlights on the arms and in the bicep using those like scatterings of white studs mixed with the regular tan colored studs. It achieves a really good look, especially from a distance, and this thing just looks incredible, like from far away. I doubt you would be able to tell that it's Lego, and I can't wait to hang it on my wall and show you guys like what it really looks like as an art piece in my apartment tour video, which will be coming in a couple of weeks. And then lastly, here's the right side of the mosaic. I think that this is arguably the worst place to like zoom in on, because all of like the dark brown and black there to achieve kind of like the gaps in the suit, especially up by like the helmet, all of that stuff just kind of falls apart the closer you look at it and the closer you get to it, which is a shame. But again, these things are meant to be viewed from a distance. I just think that the helmet especially looks really goofy up close because it just takes up so much space. Like the illusion for like that turned head really falls apart when you start looking up close at like the different colors of studs. Overall, building this actually wasn't too tedious. I really raced through it. I finished this in like 3 or 4 days, because I was just really enjoying the building process. The slowest, most tedious part was definitely just all that dark blue and black. But even that stuff, like it does create a nice flowing effect on the finished model. And because it's just 2 colors, it's a lot easier to kind of mindlessly plug away at that. Like that mindless zone that you get into on some larger repetitive Lego sets, especially in the creator expert range. That's what it was like to do the whole background. But I really loved seeing, like the repulsor blast area come together. The arm, like while I was building like that gold bicep part, I really like it was amazing to kind of like see it form and come together. And so I did really enjoy the building process for this. But to be fair, I do just like the mosaics in general, and I was in a very mosaic mood when I was rebuilding this one. Here's the back of the Mosaic, and you can see that this is pretty much like how all of the other ones were built, with those white squares and like the kind of corner red plates. You've got like the outline of the frame. It's built in the exact same way, and you've also got the Technic wall hanging elements, but let's zoom in for a closer look. So here we are in the middle of the Mosaic, and I'm sorry if this is a little bit grainy when I zoom in, but you can see that my biggest issue with this entire set is that you have like these plates that line the edges of the Mosaic to strengthen it. And that works out very well on the smaller ones, but on something triple the size, it's just not enough. You really needed plates like running down the middle of like those sections that are joined together, because this thing is so flimsy. I cannot believe how weak of a build this is. If I pull this down, you can see that the entire frame just flexes, and it flexes to the point where you can see pieces are starting to pull up. And while I was trying to move this around, the entire thing actually just snapped in half, just like that, because the frame is so incredibly flimsy. And to me, that is a major problem. Like, something this big is definitely going to be hard to build and to maintain and keep strong, but it would be easily solved with just more of those like 2 by whatever length plates. And I'm really surprised that LEGO didn't do anything like that, because this is meant to go on a wall, and it's nearly impossible to carry around anywhere just because of how much it wants to flex. And now it's time for everyone's favorite part of the LEGO art sets, the extra pieces. This combination Mosaic leaves so many pieces that you could probably build an entire like 4th Mosaic if you had the Technic base plates to do so. Because the amount of extra studs left over is like, quite frankly, insane. I've got all of these bags full of different colors. Like, the gold was barely touched. I've got this little bag full of like the colors that weren't big enough to get their own separate bags. But you can see pretty much every color has its own bag, which is kind of crazy. There's a ton of dark blue left over. However, there's not that much black. And what I find even crazier is that there's a bunch of bags that are just left sealed. Now, I actually bought a 4th Mosaic because I wanted to keep my Hulkbuster one built. So I just opened the bags to the 4th one as I needed them. And you can see I have pearl gold still completely sealed, in addition to the giant Ziploc bag full of pearl gold already. I have no idea what I'm going to do with all those studs. You have this entire bag of regular red, and then the rest are like smaller, less used colors, but like all of these earth-toned colors are left over. And that's just really a crazy amount of extra pieces. So you honestly might be wondering if you even need to buy a 3rd set in order to build this, and I'm going to address that in just a second. Here are all of the frame and other pieces left over. I've just thrown them all into a Ziploc, but you can see there's just a crazy amount of this stuff left over. Most of it is like barely touched. The only things you really use are the bricks and then some of these plates. And honestly, this is something I have a problem with, because you have so many of these plates left over, and LEGO just doesn't tell you to do anything with them, when really they should be used for strengthening the back of the Mosaic because of how incredibly weak it is. So that's what I'm going to be using these extras for, but I'm really shocked that LEGO doesn't like tell you to do that, because if you follow their instructions, you're going to end up with something that's very, very flimsy. And now we come to the question that's on everyone's mind. Is this worth it? Each of these Mosaics are 120 US dollars. That means that for this combination model, you're paying $360. That is a lot of money for something that's very flat and that's just going to go up on your wall. You know, this isn't something, yes, this is a display piece, but it's not something like Diagon Alley, which is, you know, roughly the same price, that has a ton of minifigures and detailed builds, and like, it has a lot of volume. You know, this one, while it's very large, like I said, it's very flat. And honestly, it depends on what you think is worth it. When LEGO announced that these can make a combination model, I was like, okay, well, that seals the deal for me. I have to buy 3 of these, because I'm like a huge Marvel fan and LEGO fan, and like something like this was just a no-brainer to me. And I really love this. I love this display thing. I can't wait to put it up on my wall. It's like, it's a beautiful talking point. You know, everyone's like, wow, I can't believe that that's made out of LEGO. But the fact that I end up with so many extra pieces does make me feel like it's not really worth it. Now, I don't know that you could actually assemble this without buying a 3rd Mosaic, because I ran out of black studs towards the end of the 2nd Mosaic. Like after the first, I think I ran out of studs around like the 16th Black Technic base plate. And, there's 9 times 3, there's 27 in here. And if you don't want to buy a third one, you're going to have to get those base plates from somewhere else. I haven't checked on Lego.com in a while, but last time I checked, they were $6 each. 6 times 9 is 54. That's already $54. Then you're going to have to buy, like the studs that you need. And I feel like the costs really snowball up. And unless you're willing to put in a lot of time and effort into it, you're not going to walk away with that much in savings. Honestly, I think the best thing to do would be to buy 3 of these, build this if you want to, but have a plan for all the extra pieces. Because I have no idea what I'm going to do with so many studs. But if you have an idea, then I think it's definitely worth it as, a parts pack and display piece. So that's kind of my review of this combination model. I do think it's beautiful. The build was fun, except for, that background bit. But it's definitely not for everyone. The art sets in general aren't for everyone, and these combination models even less so because of how expensive they are to make. So that's it for today. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, and check out my website, goldenninja3000.com. Bye for now.